As the Toronto Blue Jays get ready to take on the Milwaukee Brewers this week, there's more going on than just another interleague series. Because whenever these two teams meet, it quietly reopens one of the most painful chapters in Blue Jays history. A trade that didn't just go wrong, but aged into a full-blown cautionary tale. This isn't about one bad game. It's not about one bad season. It's about a decision that looked reasonable at the time, and became worse with every passing year. At the moment the trade was made, the reaction was mixed, but not explosive. There was skepticism, sure, but there was also trust. Trust that the front office had a plan. Trust that the return would fill a need. Trust that whatever Toronto gave up was expendable. And that's how most damaging trades begin. Not with outrage, but with acceptance. From Toronto's point of view, the logic was simple. They were trying to manage their competitive window. They wanted flexibility. They wanted certainty. They wanted pieces that could help immediately or stabilize the roster without creating future complications. It was a trade built on comfort. Milwaukee, on the other hand, was operating from a different mindset. They weren't chasing comfort. They were chasing upside. They identified value Toronto was willing to part with, value that didn't fully show up on spreadsheets or short-term projections. They trusted their development system and their internal evaluations. And that difference in philosophy is where everything changed. Early on, Toronto fans tried to stay patient. There were moments when the return looked serviceable, a few solid stretches, a handful of games where it felt like maybe the trade would work out fine. Not great, but fine. But fine is dangerous in baseball, because while Toronto was settling for limited impact, Milwaukee was building something real. As seasons passed, the gap became impossible to ignore. The Brewers didn't just get production, they got value. They turned what they received into meaningful contributions. Wins, stability, long-term benefit. The kind of return that strengthens an organization instead of patching holes. Meanwhile, Toronto was left waiting. Waiting for consistency, waiting for growth, waiting for the trade to justify itself. That moment never came. This trade didn't fail loudly. There was no headline moment where everyone agreed it was a disaster. No single play or season you can point to and say, that's when it all fell apart. Instead, it failed quietly. And those are the worst kinds of failures. Every year after the trade made things clearer. The Blue Jays didn't just lose a deal. They lost opportunity. Opportunity to build differently. Opportunity to allocate resources elsewhere. Opportunity to trust upside instead of safety. And the Brewers capitalized on every bit of it. For fans, the frustration grew slowly. At first it was denial, then rationalization, then comparison, and eventually acceptance. Acceptance that Toronto misread the situation. Acceptance that the trade was lost. Acceptance that there was no fixing it. Once value is gone, it's gone. What makes this trade especially painful is that it didn't happen during a rebuild. This was supposed to be a competitive era. Margins mattered, depth mattered, long-term planning mattered, and this deal weakened all three. Trades like this become scars. They don't just disappear when the players move on. They stay embedded in how fans evaluate every future move. Whenever Toronto makes a safe trade now, this one comes up. Whenever upside is sacrificed for certainty, this one comes up. That's how you know a trade truly failed. As the Blue Jays and Brewers line up this week, this history hangs in the background. It's not on the scoreboard. It's not mentioned every inning. But fans remember. They remember how the deal felt at the time. They remember how patience turned into frustration. They remember watching Milwaukee benefit while Toronto moved on with nothing to show for it. This isn't about blaming one executive or one front office regime. It's about recognizing how thin the line is between smart planning and long-term regret. Baseball isn't just about talent. It's about evaluation, timing, and courage. Toronto played it safe. Milwaukee played it smart. And that's why this trade still gets talked about. Not because fans enjoy reliving it, but because it teaches a hard lesson. That sometimes the move that feels responsible ends up being the most costly. So as the Blue Jays face the Brewers this week, remember this. Some games are about standings. Some are about momentum. And some quietly remind you of a decision you wish you could take back. Because some trades don't just lose value. They become part of your identity.